Well, okay, so is life on the endless path. Um, so this is a very remarkable day for us here in the Zendo. We're a small Zendo and it's full of live people, not Zoomed people. And we have Zoomed people as well. There's been a year and a half of isolation. It's been hard, terribly hard on some people, hard enough on everyone else. And we've survived. Let's acknowledge that there was no guarantee that any of us would, and we have. And it's really great to be together, practicing together once again, especially in person. It's a very different experience. And I hope one day, even those who are far away physically at this point will be able to have that experience or sit with others in person. It's really helpful and it's really wonderful. So today, which is Saturday, June 5th, 2021, we'll look at a final koan in our series on Manjushri, Bodhisattva of Wisdom. Now, this is an odd case, as you'll see, with some interesting challenges and twists, and it touches too on what we might call a strange aspect of the great Bodhisattva Manjushri and his absolutely profound wisdom. The case itself opens onto the mythic, a real vista onto the mythic, and at the same time returns us to our ordinary world, but it's our ordinary world, same as ever, and yet completely transformed as well. And this is case 42 in the Wumenkwan, Gateless Barrier, Mumenkwan in Japanese, which is Manjushri and the young woman in Samadhi. So the case goes like this. Once Manjushri went to a place where many Buddhas had assembled with the world-honored one. When he arrived, all the Buddhas had returned to their original dwelling place. Only a young woman remained, seated in Samadhi near the Buddha's seat. Manjushri addressed the Buddha and asked, "How can the young woman get near the Buddha's seat when I cannot?" The Buddha replied to Manjushri, "Awaken this young woman from her Samadhi and ask it yourself." Manjushri walked around the woman 3 times, snapped his fingers once, took her to the Brahma heaven, and exerted all his supernatural powers, but he could not bring her out. The world-honored one said, "Even 100,000 Manjushris cannot awaken her." Down below, past 1,200 million lands, as innumerable as the sands of the Ganges, lives the Bodhisattva of delusive wisdom in the early stages of practice. He will be able to bring her out of her Samadhi. Instantly, the Bodhisattva of delusive wisdom emerged from the earth and made vows before the world-honored one, who gave his imperial order. Delusive wisdom stepped before the young woman, snapped his fingers once, and at this, she came out of Samadhi. Woman's commentary. The comedy old Shakya puts on the stage here is a great hodgepodge. Just tell me now, Manjushri is the teacher of the 7 Buddhas. Why couldn't he get the young woman out of her Samadhi when the Bodhisattva of delusive wisdom, a beginner, could? If you can firmly grasp this point, then for you, this busy life of ignorance and discrimination will be the life of the dragon Samadhi. Woman's verse. One can awaken her, the other cannot. Both of them are free. A God mask, a devil mask. The failure is wonderful indeed. So, the name Bodhisattva of Wisdom, by the way, is Aiken Roshi's translation of the Bodhisattva's name, which in earlier translations into English of this case was simply presented as the name Momyo. Aiken Roshi has kindly sharpened the case. with Bodhisattva of delusive wisdom. Manjushri, teacher of the past 7 Buddhas, can't attend the assembly of Buddhas. Why not? And what is this gathering about? Most likely, the Buddhas have come from across the universe to swap ideas on the problems of their essential task to save all suffering beings. In short, they've come together to talk shop. The story of their meeting, from which Manjushri is excluded, appears in the Sutra, The Collected Essentials of All Buddhas, where we are told that it actually took place in another galaxy, the Buddha land of Tenno Tathagata. Sutras say that there are not only vast stretches of space in our universe, but incomprehensible periods of time, endless eons between the arising of Buddha after Buddha. Here on earth, we honor 7 such fully awakened beings of the past, but the chain of Buddhas is actually said to go back endlessly into distant eons, world cycles, big bangs. But the story is not the koan. The story of the meeting, the exclusion of Manjushri, the presence of a young woman near the Buddha Shakyamuni, Manjushri's failure to get close to the Buddha or to awaken the woman, as well as the success of the beginner Bodhisattva, requires, like all good stories, a degree of faith known as the willing suspension of disbelief. The koan that emerges from the story challenges that very faith by raising questions we must answer. To resolve a koan, an intellectual response, no matter how subtle, won't do. A koan, this koan cannot be brought to life or bring us to life by concepts. We can't sit back, relax, munch popcorn, and enjoy the show. Instead, we ourselves are dragged up on stage to join in the drama with the players. It's rather like the living theater of the 60s, totally participatory, actors and theater goers jumbled together. The same spirit of boundless play is alive and well in this 1,000-year-old koan. And what a show it is. But to start, what happens? First, Manjushri is admitted to the gathering and all the Buddhas vanish, returning to their original places. Where's that? That's our first challenge. The cosmic and mythic become ordinary and real, and the ordinary and real open onto the cosmic and mythic without flattening any of it down and cramming the mythic into the ordinary like it was some jack-in-the-box. Master Wu Men's verbal power reminds me of Dylan, who on his latest album, Rough and Rowdy Ways, says his I is like a shooting star, and that he's climbed a mountain of swords on bare feet. These are both nearly direct quotes from the Gateless Barrier. In a May 22nd, 2021 article in The Guardian titled Bob Dylan at 80, in praise of a mighty and unbowed singer-songwriter, we read, "We're celebrating an artist who can transform his personal experience into something mythic, and then back again into something that is personally meaningful to his listener. This double operation is the heart of his genius." This might be something to keep in mind while exploring this koan. Wu Men has the same mind as Dylan, or Dylan the same mind as Wu Men. So Manjushri goes to a place of many Buddhas, and when he arrives, he finds that all the Buddhas have returned to their original places. If you get the why and wherefore of this, Aiken Roshi says the rest of the case is in the bag for you. Except not all the Buddhas are gone. Shakyamuni Buddha remains, and seated near him is a young woman sitting in Samadhi, out beyond her ordinary daily consciousness, and as Aiken Roshi adds, rather stuck there. Why is she able to sit near the Buddha when Manjushri, the Buddha's own teacher, can't get near? Here's our second challenge. Why can't Manjushri get close when she can? Shouldn't the Bodhisattva of perfect wisdom be able to be closer to the Buddha than anyone? After all, he was the Buddha's own teacher. Plus, on the altar, Manjushri Bodhisattva sits on the Buddha's left, the heart side. And in traditional Japanese Soto Zendos, he even replaces the Buddha himself and sits out among the sitters in the great equality of communal zazen. And yet, here he is, kept distant, while at the same time, a young woman, a beginner, is intimate. Now, to be honest, the first part of this case draws on a dark aspect of Asian and world history. Women did not have great status in Asian Buddhism in its original form, which was essentially monastic. Though there were enlightened women all through Zen's history who appear in sutras and in koan cases, rarely do we meet them as ancestors. Of course, in our ancestral line, all the names italicized are of women, and those were added by Dainin Roshi, and we're very grateful. Aiken Roshi began that process. Fortunately, this exclusion of women from the ancestral line and from appearing in Zen fully in our history is changing. I mean, why would you want to keep half the human race out of deep practice realization? Come on. Anyway, this is the misogynist history lying behind the point. It's not simply that an ordinary person is near the Buddha while a great bodhisattva can't get close. It's that a woman is there and doing okay in her practice too. That's what would traditionally have made this astounding. A woman? What? Impossible. Ha! It's horrifyingly up there with, does even something lowly as a dog have Buddha nature? But remember, it is there only to underscore the drama, not to uphold a narrow view. Think of an actor screaming lines rather than simply saying them. It's done for emphasis, to make a point. Here the case is doing the same, using what the culture of the time offered. And yet, the case may have something more up its sleeve even here. The young woman, her youth, further emphasizes that she can have no real wisdom. The older people in ancient China were respected, not the young. So that she's young indicates she's not a wise person. She nonetheless sits close to the Buddha while Manjushri remains distant. The woman with her stains of menstruation, pregnancy, and male projected desire is put in the higher seat, and the great Bodhisattva, teacher of the past 7 Buddhas, in the lower. In the Lotus Sutra and also the Vimalakirti Sutra, a Naga princess in one case and a youthful goddess in the other appear and put both the monks and arhats to shame with their freely flowing Buddha wisdom. So perhaps the tradition is here giving a nod to a deeper truth. Practice, realization, is not just for special, so-called advanced folks, but is open to all, to each of us, just as we are. Wisdom is fully accessible to everyone. Maybe Manjushri is behind this, or the Buddha himself has set it up precisely to knock it down. If so, bravo. Now, what is samadhi? The word samadhi is from the root samadha, which means to collect or bring together, and is often translated as concentration or unification of mind. In short, it is the condition of the mind absorbed in its own presence, in silent, limitless, one-pointed, attentionless attention, a selfless but not necessarily awakened condition. It can be pleasurable, even blissful. However, if we become attached to it, clinging to it as more real than our ordinary experience, we create another obstacle. Our daily life, haunted by the memory of something more, something special, then seems not quite right. not quite good enough. Clinging to concepts, especially the concept of me in here and everyone and everything else vaguely somewhere out there, is the greatest obstacle to realization. But clinging to blissful states can become their own sort of problem too. Who, after all, is the one clinging to such conditions? Some people experiencing deep peace through breath practice can hesitate about taking on the challenge of koan practice, fearing that it will threaten their happy but not grounded in insight condition. If our aspiration is for awakening, faith becomes important. But faith in what? Faith in our actual nature and in our potential to wake to it. And I'm calling it actual nature because true nature suggests it's in opposition to something like a false or untrue nature. It's simply our actual nature. That's all. Now, perhaps this is part of the young woman's issue in the koan. She's stuck in some sort of dichotomy like this, thinks she's supposed to get someplace. And so she's kind of stuck in her samadhi. And perhaps this koan can help point a way beyond this very fundamental to practice dilemma. Roshi Kapleau used to say that for Zen practice, there is only one article of faith we need. Faith that the Buddha wasn't a fool or a liar, when upon his great enlightenment, he spontaneously exclaimed, "Wonder of wonders, all beings are Buddhas, fully endowed with wisdom and virtue. Only their self-oriented thinking prevents them from realizing this." If he wasn't a fool or a liar, what did he mean? We begin to think, well, all beings, well, that means me too. But how can I be a Buddha? I'm filled with confusion, anxiety, anger, jealousy, pettiness, and so on. And if we're all Buddhas filled with wisdom and compassion, then why all the suffering, anxiety, and injustice I see and hear about every day in our world? And yet the Buddha wasn't a fool or a liar. So what did he mean? What's going on? Probing into these very doubts is the path of practice realization. Faith and doubt are not different. Doubt, which is not skepticism, but openness and wonder, is faith in action. This doubt, which is faith, offers us the freedom to question and wonder and probe into why things are the way they are. Who am I? Why am I here? Why was I born? Where am I going? Why do things seem so messed up on our beautiful planet with its diverse ecosystems and life forms? So while calm and steadiness of mind and emotion are valuable first steps, they're not the point. What is the point? How will you show it? Wu Men uses this koan to help us find out. To continue, why can't the Bodhisattva of greatest wisdom, who is clear on all of this, get near to the Buddha, while someone new to practice and not even considered to have much potential, someone rather stuck in their zazen, sits close to him? That's the second question of the case. The first was, where did the Buddhas go? And the second, why can the young woman be close when Manjushri can't? It's kind of crazy, isn't it? Then again, so is our ordinary reality when you think about it. As an aside, I wonder what the young woman does once she's awakened from her samadhi. Raise a family, get a job, become a Greta Thunberg and dedicate her life to saving the planet? Case 46 of the Gateless Barrier, stepping from the top of the 100-foot pole, goes like this. Master Shi Shuang said, How do you step from the top or forward from the top of a 100-foot pole? Another eminent master of former times said, you who sit on the top of a 100-foot pole, although you have entered the way, it is not yet genuine. Take a step from the top of the pole, and the worlds of the 10 directions will be your total body. Stepping out of her empty samadhi, what might the young woman accomplish? I also find resonance with koan 16 of the Gateless Barrier. The world is vast and wide. Why do you put on your 7-piece robe at the sound of the bell? Anyway, her being close to the Buddha bugs Manjushri. So he asks the Buddha directly as to what's going on. The Buddha responds with equal directness. Awaken her and find out for yourself. Good advice and very Zen-like. I won't tell you about it. Do the work. You'll know it intimately for yourself. Now, this will take effort. Starting, then sloughing off won't accomplish much. So Manjushri, or Manju as he's known also in Japanese, just as Manju, gives his all. He snaps his fingers next to the young woman's ears. He circumambulates around her to get her attention. He takes her up to the highest Brahma heavens, way up there. Indeed, where all the glory of it might snap her out of her limited state, or where maybe looking down, she'll become so self-conscious and terrified, she'll immediately want to return to an ordinary condition. Nothing doing. None of it works. Manjushri, the great Bodhisattva, teacher of the past 7 Buddhas, fails. Why? Why does he fail? This is another point. Not only couldn't he get close to the Buddha, but he, the wisest of all the Bodhisattvas, can't bring the young woman out of her samadhi. So what is the function of absolute wisdom? What is Manjushri's purpose? If he can't go where Buddhas assemble, and he can't get a beginner in practice, a young woman no less, to awaken from her limited samadhi, what's going on? It's pretty strange, isn't it? Or is it? Like Manjushri, we have to answer this for ourselves. We have to solve the mystery. To do that, we have to commit fully to the question, to the doubting, to the unsettling condition of not knowing. Why can't Manjushri enter the assembly of Buddhas? Why have all the Buddhas gone back to their original places? What and where are their original places? Why can't Manjushri get close to the Buddha, and why can't he awaken the young woman? And then the plot thickens, adding a final humiliating twist for the wisest of bodhisattvas. A beginner bodhisattva who we've been told resides countless worlds, world systems, or galaxies away. These worlds, we're told, are more like sprinkled everywhere, like more than the sands of the Ganges. He could be galaxies away. He immediately appears, though, as if close at hand, and without a moment's hesitation, with a single snap, awakens the young woman just like that. That's the case. Wu Men himself calls it a total hodgepodge, which means a mishmash, a conglomeration of things messily jumbled together without rhyme or reason. Here's Wu Men's commentary. The comedy old Shakya puts on the stage here is a great hodgepodge. Just tell me this, or just tell me now. Manjushri is the teacher of the 7 Buddhas. Why couldn't he get the young woman out of her samadhi when the bodhisattva of delusive wisdom, a beginner, could? If you can firmly grasp this point, then for you, this busy life of ignorance and discrimination will be the life of the dragon samadhi. Why comedy in the sense of farce? And what is the hodgepodge? And here's the payoff. If you can get clear on this, Woman says that for you, this very life, with its absurdities, its challenges, its difficulties, its injustices, its joys, its sorrows, its ups, its downs, will itself be the dragon Samadhi. The dragon Samadhi is not simply a condition of calm, peace, or even bliss. It is not even a momentary experience of oneness. It is liberation, realization, intimacy, enlightenment itself. Like a great dragon, it swallows up not just little me, myself, and I, but the entire universe in a single gulp. What limitation then could there be, right? Hold on. Wait a minute. Your ordinary life with its problems, challenges, difficulties, and messes will be enlightenment itself? Really? Can this ordinary, crazy, time-factored, limited life with its failed relationships, missed opportunities, anxieties, injustice, angers, sorrows, and fleeting joys be the great liberation we've heard about and ardently seek? Wumen's commentary doesn't simply say we should have faith in this. It's not asking for piety or belief. It is telling us this is simply so, and it is simultaneously challenging us to find out the truth of it for ourselves. He holds a carrot before us. To realize the great dragon Samadhi is a tantalizing possibility. But there is a stick too, the pain of not getting clear on this and of living in failure prods us from behind. Aiken Roshi wrote, doing Zazen teaches Zazen. Kapro Roshi used to say, if you don't let the Dharma down, the Dharma will never let you down. And also that nothing sincerely done is a wasted effort. It's all part of our journey toward true maturity. Good words to take to heart. In short, making the effort has its own value, or as the saying goes, virtue is its own reward. But virtue doesn't necessarily mean goodness. The virtue of iron is strength. The virtue of fire is heat. Don't get hung up on success or failure. Like Manjushri, we do our best. Yet, can failure be wonderful indeed, as the verse says? Come on, we dread failure. Our schooling instills that deeply in us. We want A's, not F's. In the movie The Right Stuff, when Alan Shepard, the first astronaut to be launched into space, is being sealed into his tiny capsule, which is perched on the top of a lethally explodable rocket. Right there at the knife edge of life and death, he utters his heartfelt astronaut's prayer. Dear Lord, don't let me fuck up. He's not asking to survive. He's asking not to fail. Is this your life will be the dragon Samadhi false news or the real deal? Woman is not being reassuring. He's not holding our hand saying, one day when this gets clear, you'll live well. He's talking about the truth of your life and mine right now. This count, this breath, this koan point, this confusion, this effort, all of this is its realization and the way to it. Now for the verse. One can awaken her, the other cannot. Both of them are free. A God mask, a devil mask. The failure is wonderful indeed. One can, one can't. Isn't that life? But isn't it unfair? Aren't differences unfair? Often it certainly seems so. Shakespeare was an immediate success, while Melville never received a single positive review on the great American novel, Moby Dick. Picasso hit it out of the park every time, yet Van Gogh never sold a painting. One can awaken her, the other cannot. And astoundingly, Woman asserts that both are fully free. Really? How is Manjushri free with his inability? And how is the Bodhisattva of delusive wisdom also free? How is Einstein free? And how is Walt Disney? Put on a God mask and we bow down in awe. Wear a devil mask and we run away in terror. Which mask do you wear? How often in a single day might you take off one and put on another? Is Manjushri's failure wonderful indeed, or is it sour grapes? Is the koan saying that in the long run, even painful things are for the best? But wouldn't that be to mistake a bell for a pot, as Wu Men says elsewhere in commenting on another koan? Then again, a snake's failure to gallop like a horse makes it a truly wonderful snake. We must awake to Manjushri's nothing at all, to the vast wisdom of just this, in which there is no me, no you, no self, no other, which does not mean nothingness. Yamada Roshi encouraged his students by saying, you must beat the empty sky. And we must live like Momyo, the beginner bodhisattva of delusive, incomplete wisdom, seeing what is in front of us, acting and living wholeheartedly, responding without airs. Zen mind, beginner's mind, might be a cliche. And yet, snapping his fingers, Momyo awakes the young woman. Zen mind, beginner's mind, and he awakes the young woman. A molecule on one side of the universe, we're told, will rotate in synchronicity with its twin all the way on the universe's other side, despite the limitless intervening depths of time and space. The bodhisattva of delusive wisdom and the young woman are a pair. He snaps his fingers and she comes out of meditation, adjusts her robe, brushes back a strand of hair, and heads off to speak to heads of state about climate change. Endless lines of quantum possibility branching out from each billionth of a second collapse into one single actual line we call reality. All other possible lines then are no-shows and so failures. The taste of this tea, the pink of those blossoms up by the altar, the vroom of the air conditioning. That's it. The failure is wonderful indeed. An old Irish tale asks, what's the most beautiful music in the world? And the answer is the music of what happens. Some think of realization in terms of winning and losing. When passed on a koan is bravo, success. And it is a big relief after all. And yet, isn't realization the ego's greatest failure? Dylan adds, there's no success like failure, and failures, no success at all. Roshi Kapleau used to ask at workshops, let's say you have an alcohol problem. Who could help you more, a therapist or a reformed alcoholic? Then he himself would invariably answer saying, both. They both could be helpful, each in their own way. Yamada Roshi wrote, take the example of a jet pilot about to take off. 100,000 Manjushris might not be able to get it started, but a jet pilot could do it very easily. Manjushri and Momyo, the Bodhisattva of delusive wisdom, like Momyo and the young woman in Samadhi, also form a pair. Both are wisdom holders. What is the difference between their two kinds of wisdom, and which is the greater? Though this is perhaps off topic, here's a closing story for you. Back in the 60s, Dane and Henry Roshi had an old VW bus. One night he was driving along a lonely, empty, rural road, and the bus broke down. Cursing and grumbling, he started off walking toward the lights of a farmhouse twinkling a mile or so ahead. As he walked along the empty roadway, the odors of trees and plants, of field and forest came to him on soft night breezes. The Milky Way rippled and shone overhead. It became one of the most beautiful walks and memorable nights of his life. Wonderful. Wonderful indeed. We'll stop here and recite our great vows for all in unison. Then we will say farewell to our Zoom participants, and the rest of us will file out of the Zendo and have some refreshments and get to meet one another in person after a long hiatus. So, and so a final word just to say, it's really been wonderful to start up again. In person is a very special treat. You realize what a blessing it is and should never be taken for granted. And I'm so glad that Zoom has added on the capability for us to work with people in New York City, Asheville, California. This is really also tremendous. And so I'm just really grateful and so happy to see all of you. So please, everybody, stay well. We'll see you again real soon. Steady on, and we'll recite. I'll turn this around so we all face the Buddha, and those in the Zendo face the Buddha as well, and we'll recite our great vow for all, vows for all. So great to see you. Bye-bye.
Great vows for all. The many beings are numberless. I vow to free them all. Greed, hatred, and ignorance rise endlessly. I vow to abandon them all. Dharma gates are countless. I vow to wake to them all. Buddha's way is unattainable. I vow to embody it all. The many beings are numberless. I vow to free them all. Greed, hatred, and ignorance rise endlessly. I vow to abandon them all. Dharma gates are countless. I vow to wake to them all. Buddha's way is unattainable. I vow to embody it all. The many beings are numberless. I vow to free them all. Greed, hatred, and ignorance rise endlessly. I vow to abandon them all. Dharma gates are countless. I vow to wake to them all. Buddha's way is unattainable. I vow to embody it all.
If you have space to do a prostration, that's great. Otherwise, standing bows and watch your head. See if it does come in on the sides. Please head out and we will get to say hi to one another. Bye, Zoomers. See you soon. Adios.